Cyclone Kirrily fizzes out and dangerous thunderstorms expected for southeast Queensland this week. So for your Australia Day forecast update, happy Australia Day to all of my viewers, by the way. We're looking at Tropical Cyclone Kirrily, which really fizzed out, thank goodness, as it made its landfall on Townsville. Barely a Category 1 strength cyclone as it moved through Townsville. However, still, some very destructive winds were recorded up the coast near Lucinda and Cardwell, so it wasn't fully a bust, but still a far weaker system than what we were looking out for, which is some great news there. And we're also looking out for some thunderstorms as well over the next 10 days across parts of southeastern Queensland. All of that plus more in the next 10 minutes, so make sure you stick around to the end of the video to get your latest weather coverage. So hot conditions remain across Australia's centre. They're just starting to ease off about now, and we're going to get some hot weather developing across Australia's west coast. In fact, we could be getting some really warm days down towards Perth, where we might be seeing temperatures approach 41 or 42 degrees along the west coast. Some storms up in the north, and also rain and storms associated with the remnants of Tropical Cyclone Kirrily as she moves inland and weakens far more significantly than what we expected. The rainfall threats really start to die off now. There will be a little bit of rain around Mount Isa associated with this tropical low as it moves through, but a lot less rainfall was falling at that, compared to what was expected between Cairns and Mackay, so that's a bunch of good news there. So Cyclone Kirrily, or ex-tropical Cyclone Kirrily, located over about Huandon right now as she moves inland and weakens off substantially, still though bringing some gusty showers and some pretty heavy rainfall to inland communities. And Cyclone Angrex still kicking in the Australian region of responsibility, but it's expected to move over into the southwest Indian Ocean, where it's likely to become a Category 4 strength tropical cyclone. Over the coming couple of days, if it isn't there already, actually, a very powerful cyclone is expected out of that, but it's not going to be affecting any land areas whatsoever, and it's just going to be a beautiful system to track. So I might be giving some coverage on another channel on that. So taking a look at the Access G3 rainfall forecast, you can see quite a lot of rainfall still expected in central Queensland associated with the remnants of Tropical Cyclone Kirrily, and you can also see a lot of thunderstorm activity over Sunday and Monday, and then into early Tuesday as well, as the the remnants of the cyclone moves into South Australia and pulls in a lot of tropical moisture from the South Pacific, and we could be seeing some pretty strong thunderstorms from that. Again, nothing to write home about regarding Tropical Cyclone Kirrily's remnants. It really was a fizzer storm in the end, and to a degree, definitely fearmongered the storm, considering that I was expecting that Category 3 strength landfall. We did still get a Category 3 strength severe tropical cyclone making landfall. However, the destructive core of the storm really dodged any major population centres, which is some very good news indeed. And Townsville really had what was effectively a storm in a teacup, absolutely nothing in the end, so very good news on that front. Cool conditions across Western Australia through the remnants of tropical low 03U, but then it's going to warm up significantly across the west coast, where we might be seeing daytime maxima, as I said, approach 42 or 41 degrees Celsius in some areas around Perth. Also some relatively warm conditions across parts of the Northern Territory, but again, it's the Australian summer, so we really have to be expecting daytime maxima in excess of 45 degrees Celsius for a lot of locations. Still though, quite a lot of places extending from Victoria to New South Wales and then across to South Australia and Western Australia next weekend, expecting some fairly warm conditions there. So here's a look at the radar imagery from Tropical Cyclone Kirrily, or at least her remnants. It's really starting to peter off now. Still though, some heavy rainfall heading across Huandon and then across to Maxwellton as well, and up towards Georgetown, Croydon, and around to Ravenshoe. But yeah, really nothing on the backside of this system. We were expecting that to be the strongest side of the tropical cyclone, because that's what the reefs were saying to us, but I mean, absolutely nothing really. The winds have completely died off in Townsville, and any recovery effort that's required will certainly be into high gear from this morning. We will just start things off by taking a quick look at the remnants of Tropical Cyclone Kirrily, located right here where the cursor is. It's about, I'd say about 50 kilometres to the northwest of Torrens Creek right now, moving through Huandon and then across to Richmond and Julia Creek later today. Still though, a little bit of rainfall is expected to fall, well actually quite a lot of rainfall in what is quite a dry part of Queensland compared to the tropical coast. Average annual rainfall where the storm is moving through right now is about 600 millimetres, and there will be places picking up to 200 to 300 millimetres from this tropical load today. So a substantial amount of rainfall is expected, and there is a chance that rivers get up to the minor or moderate flooding alert. So it's remnants are certainly not something to completely dismiss. Unlike the core of the tropical cyclone, it made landfall a lot further north from where we were expecting, and really spared Townsville down towards Bowen from the worst conditions. I mean, I was talking this storm up all week, saying that we were going to be seeing severe tropical cyclone conditions through the coastline, and And honestly, I should have gone with my gut. And as I saw this tropical cyclone come ashore, I should have steered away from what the Bureau of Meteorology was saying with that Category 3 strength destructive core. And I should have been going off purely what the radar imagery was saying, in the sense of the storm is not vertically aligned properly, which means it's a really disorganized mess, and it is struggling to blow up some significant winds. So places around Lucinda and Ingham probably copped quite a beating last night. They would have been receiving sustained winds around 100 kilometres an hour, but around Townsville, I mean, it was nothing. It was just a bunch of gusty thunderstorms that blew through for about 2 hours. So yeah, absolutely nothing to write home about there. And as we take a look at wind observations now, I mean, on the backside of a tropical cyclone, you're looking at sustained winds of around 50 kilometres an hour from the north, but here you're probably looking at winds barely tickling 30 kilometres an hour, so very weak winds indeed, and it certainly was a fizzer in terms of tropical cyclones. And I apologise to everyone on the coastline that took my weather forecasting and was like, oh yeah, this is going to be an absolute belter of a tropical cyclone, and in the end it turned out to be absolutely nothing. And again, I mean, you can have all of the tropical cyclone tracking data in the world. I'm using windy.com, which is probably the most versatile tool in terms of tropical cyclone tracking. You can have all of the data in the world. You can have 5 years of tracking tropical cyclones in terms of experience. You can have a university degree like all the Bureau of Meteorology workers have, and you just cannot beat 5 minutes of wisdom from some of the old timers up here. They knew exactly what was going on with the storm. It was going to fizz, it was going to bust, and I mean, look at what happened. It did fizz and it did bust, and absolutely nothing really came from it. I don't even think it's caused many tree downings yet, and that's typically what you'd see in a Category 2 tropical cyclone. So Category 3 was a very bullish call, but I mean, considering the wind gusts that we were seeing across the Queensland coastline earlier on yesterday morning, a Category 3 call was certainly justified. Hamilton Island wind gusts of 120 kilometres an hour, that's pretty extreme considering how far away they were from the storm centre. However, I mean, it was certainly not a Category 3 as it came ashore last night. So that was a very bad call from a lot of the trackers, and I apologise for that. Still, however, the rain threat is certainly there. Throughout the rest of today, it's likely we'll be seeing a significant amount of rainfall fall as this tropical cyclone makes its way deeper into central Queensland. The rain will certainly ease off by this evening as the tropical low gets itself over the desert. Maybe still a little bit of rainfall as we get into Saturday and so forth. Over the next 3 days, there'll be places picking up about 100 millimetres or so in the wake of this tropical cyclone, maybe about 200 to 300 millimetres as you get closer to Mount Isa, Cloncurry, Julia Creek and that sort of area. But again, very remote parts of Queensland here. There's hardly any people that live through here, and the worst that this rainfall will do is probably cause a couple of rivers to fill up and fill a couple of dams. So in actual fact, this rainfall is probably some good news for central Queensland, which is probably the only part of Queensland that has really missed out on the rainfall so far. They've had a very wet start to the wet season, but central Queensland is sort of the only place that has really missed out from the significant amounts of rainfall. They were expecting to be drenched from Tropical Low 03U, where once again my forecast was absolutely terrible, so I really need to work on that, that's for sure. And thank you so much for all of the feedback and comments regarding it. But still though, about 200 millimetres of rainfall could fall through this part, or this neck of the woods. Quite a lot of rainfall expected across parts of central Western Australia as well, with a passage of the remnants of 03U that's moving through Leinster and past Kalgoorlie. I mean, it's looking like absolute bog water on the satellite imagery right now. It's blowing up zero convection whatsoever, but this is the sort of stuff where you can see some pretty significant thunder towers blow up as a result of it. Still, however, not expecting too much to materialise from that. Now, I've been talking about this severe thunderstorm threat that's going to develop from this weekend, in fact, probably from tonight over parts of southeastern Queensland or southern Queensland. Tonight should be relatively calm still, though a couple of storms expected to fire up around the Brisbane Metro and Toowoomba later on tonight, and then as we get into Saturday morning as well, there'll be some storms there. But we're going to see this trough line develop between the remnants of Tropical Cyclone Kirrily and then down towards northeastern New South Wales, which will extend over parts such as Tamworth and Coffs Harbour. We could be seeing some pretty strong storms materialise out of this Saturday afternoon and into Saturday evening. There won't be any coverage on this channel, however. I'm going on a quick holiday, a 3-day holiday on a boat, so I will be away for a couple of days, but you bet there'll be coverage starting again from at the absolute latest Tuesday morning. So stick around for that. Sunday morning as well, or into Sunday afternoon, there'll be quite a lot of thunderstorms firing up on the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast, including Brisbane Metro. And then even up towards Rockhampton and Mackay, we could be seeing a couple of thunderstorms fire up along the coastline. Now, when you get down towards the scenic rim and so forth, these thunderstorms will likely be organised squalls at this point. Pretty dangerous thunderstorms in terms of maximum wind speeds. In fact, one or two of them might actually go supercell. But as you get further up the coastline, they'll probably be more sort of pulse thunderstorms. But there'll be very strong thunderstorms at that associated with that trough line from the remnants of Tropical Cyclone Kirrily. And they could definitely be packing a punch in terms of maximum wind speeds and some very heavy rainfall as well. So yeah, make sure you're preparing for those in the mornings if you do get placed under a severe thunderstorm warning. It would actually be fantastic if the Bureau of Meteorology did severe thunderstorm watches like they do in the United States. Give people about a 12-hour warning regarding strong thunderstorm activity that is expected to fire up. But still, though, some very strong thunderstorms look like they might actually blow up Sunday night and into early Monday morning. They might even last until about Monday morning. And then across sort of the southern border of Queensland with New South Wales, there'll be a couple of thunderstorms firing up again. But Monday looks a lot more tamer compared to Sunday. Sunday's probably going to be the day where we get quite a lot of strong thunderstorms and also a couple of strong pulse thunderstorms as well across central Queensland on Tuesday. Now, the rainfall model forecasts can actually be quite deceiving in terms of these pulse thunderstorms. You're not going to be looking at an event where you've got huge, widespread torrential rainfall across central Queensland like the models are actually suggesting here. You're going to be looking at an event where there's one thunderstorm here and then another thunderstorm here and another thunderstorm here and then one up towards here. So probably from this, you might get maybe 20 or 30 cells fire across Queensland and not this widespread torrential rain threat. But it gives you a good idea of how strong these storms are, because the reds and the purples and the blacks, that indicates very heavy rainfall, i.e. very strong thunderstorms, and they're going to be promoted by a low-pressure system in the Coral Sea and also a low-pressure system in the Northern Territory, which would be the remnants of Tropical Cyclone Kirrily. Now, we're going to also watch this little low-pressure system in the Coral Sea as well, because it has very little model support. In fact, it's got some model support that it could spin itself up into a tropical cyclone. The Eastern WF calls for it to become a fully fledged tropical low by around Wednesday-ish next week, but the Access G3 actually calls for a different scenario where it promotes a tropical cyclone forming. It did in the first part of the video. Let's see if it develops here. It's way off screen, but by around Friday, it looks like the tropical low does fully develop and then it moves down towards the Queensland coastline by next Saturday and Sunday. You're talking about the 3rd and the 4th of February by now. This is a very long-range forecast, so I'm not going to put any comments or predictions on it. It's a track that tropical lows do take every now and then where they parallel the Queensland coastline, and if this one does form, it looks like it's going to be embedded fully into the monsoon, and it's going to be very weak because it will be struggling with wind shear. So this is absolutely no concern whatsoever at this point. Still though, rainfall accumulation over the next 10 days for a lot of Queensland is going to be between that 100 to 200 millimetre threshold. You can see with those deep greens and then into the blues, that's about 100 millimetres of rainfall. So yeah, a lot of places in Queensland over the next 10 days expecting some substantial rainfall from these thunderstorms, which might in one or two locations cause a little bit of riverine flooding. So again, make sure you're watching the weather closely and staying safe and heeding all necessary warnings. But again, this is just a forecast, so you're gonna, as with all thunderstorms, you're gonna have to wait until the day of to really see if you're going to be impacted. Thunderstorms, we typically only get about 30 minutes of warning before they blast through a certain area. So again, just be watching the weather very closely, and then on the days of, so next Saturday, Sunday, Monday and Tuesday, be watching the radar if you are under a zone that is expected to be impacted by severe thunderstorms. But again, these thunderstorms don't look life-threatening. They look like they're just going to dump a lot of rainfall in a certain location, so the risk of flash flooding is possible, but they also look like they could bring some damaging winds as well. So make sure you're prepared in the backyard. If you've got deck chairs out there that could be blown around in damaging winds, make sure that you're putting them inside or strapping them down in the case of a really strong thunderstorm. And also there's a risk of large hailstones in one or two locations as well. So make sure you're putting cars under carports or in sheds and staying safe. from large hailstones. But yeah, the Australian weather picture certainly starting to quiet down after Tropical Cyclone Kirrily, which was a huge bust, mind you, as I've said time and time again. A very strong cyclone was expected, but just never got there, and again, should have trusted my gut as I was watching that storm make landfall. I mean, it didn't even have an eye-like feature when it was making landfall. I mean, well, I guess it sort of did, but this is a very ragged eye for what was a Category 3 strength severe tropical cyclone. So, did a very bad job forecasting that. I do apologise for that. But again, I think the Bureau of Meteorology really messed this one up yet again. It wasn't a Category 3, and that was the information that I and a lot of other people were relying on. It's a very difficult forecast to make, but yeah, we got it totally wrong here, and I do apologise for that. But if you could stick with me for another tropical cyclone, that'd be fantastic. And again, if you do feel like sticking with me, then please do consider leaving a like on the video and also subscribe while you're at it. But that's all from me, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.
Thank you for watching our content this update. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe to get more updates covering all things weather and geophysics impacting Australia and the Oceania region. Subscribe to our other channels for more content from across the network, and be sure to check out our website where you can find free access to floater and radar imagery and articles on everything weather and much more. If you wish to support us directly, you can purchase some of our merchandise. We have a wide variety of clothing and homeware, or you could become an ultimate fan, which is the best way to directly support us, granting you some sweet perks and offers, including features in our custom storm animations, live streams, and much more.